Yes, ostensibly, you've got highly trained and experienced defence barristers, prosecuting solicitors, judges, but the least experienced people in the room are the jury, and they're ultimately the ones who have all the power. The 12 is ostensibly about a jury sitting on a murder trial in contemporary Sydney, but it's about many things really. You know, it's about prejudice, it's about justice, it's about how people's individual circumstances can affect or bias their judgments, their opinions. It's about relationships, and really it's a portrait of contemporary Sydney.
Parramatta?
Yeah, near there.
Yeah, I'm out that way. I worked a big job site at Camellia for a couple of years.
Camellia. Don't know where that is.
Oh, hey. Do you go to the horse races?
Sometimes.
So that's where I recognise you from, Rose Hill.
Yeah, but that's the whole point,
Maybe.
to make it fair. That's why we're a part of the process.
It's a yes or no answer.
Why?
So the 12 is based on a Belgian series. It turns out that the Belgian judicial system and trial system is quite different than the Australian system. So we really had to have a deep dive into the Australian judicial system, look at how murder trials in our country are different to theirs, and kind of rebuild particularly the legal story from the ground up to make it work. Although some of the backstories of the jury members are similar between our version and the Belgian version, the case itself is completely different. And I think that was really important, partly in appealing to a new audience, but particularly to audience members who might have seen the previous version. You know, I mean, there's a strong sense of not so much who done it, but did they done it? So we really wanted that question of whether the woman who's on trial is guilty or not guilty to kind of maintain throughout until the final episode, hoping that the audience members will have a kind of quite a bit of ebb and flow, as do the jury members, about whether she's guilty or not.
Guilty, not guilty. What if we can't decide?
I think I already know.
The theory behind casting the jury was sort of along the lines of, what does it feel like if you get on a bus, you know, in any part of Sydney and you sit down with 12 other strangers? Who are they? What do they look like? So diversity was really important in casting. Because we go home with the jury members, we wanted to be able to go home to different parts of Sydney, and we wanted to go home to parts of Sydney that aren't commonly seen in TV drama. There's a lot of subtle stuff that goes on across the 10 episodes that, you know, maybe the average viewer won't notice, but for example, the colour palette of the clothes starts off quite bright and diverse, and as the series focuses in towards a final verdict, we start sucking the colour out of the wardrobes and out of the locations, kind of reflecting the journey that the defendant is going on as the case narrows down to a decision on her fate. We had to build a standing set that was going to be our interior court. You know, this is a Supreme Court building. We didn't want to go down the route of the old style Darlinghurst Court kind of wood panel. We wanted something that felt very contemporary. For example, deciding to have banks of high windows on two sides that lead to the outside world so that we could use time of day and passage of time as a dramatic element. If the court is in session over the course of a day, the sun subtly moves from one side of the courtroom to another. And we decided as we got further on towards the end of the case, which lasts about 3 months, we wanted to get a sense of the season changing. So all of this has a subtle emotional impact that reflects whatever's going on in the storytelling at the time.
Might I suggest this is a slightly more jury-friendly shade, you know?
I think like all productions shooting anywhere in the world during this pandemic, we faced a lot of challenges that were unique to this production, and then challenges that have been shared by every production. One of the worst that happened early on was the day that the whole crew who'd done their PCR tests after a long weekend, the next day all the results came back in and 19 were positive. 19 out of 30 is a pretty extraordinary ratio. And although it looked clearly like there was perhaps an error, we had no choice but to shut down. In the meantime, those tests were sent back to the lab, they were retested, and there was a lab error. So in the end, really, there were 1 or 2 people who were positive COVID who hadn't been before, but there were like 16 or 17 incorrectly diagnosed cases. So what I hope the audiences will get out of watching The 12, first and foremost, is a gripping courtroom drama. And I hope that question of is she or isn't she guilty, I hope that will maintain audiences across all 10 eps till the final verdict is delivered. But apart from that, I hope that the show offers audiences a fascinating look into contemporary life in Sydney.